I never thought I'd actually get myself on Tinder. My friends convinced me it was a good idea, saying it was the way everyone meets nowadays. After weeks of hesitation, I made an account, and after a few weird matches, I met someone named Tom. He was charming in his messages, witty, and seemed genuinely interested. His pictures gave him an air of mystery. There was something about his eyes that drew me in. After talking for a couple of days, he asked if I wanted to meet for dinner, and I thought, why not? We decided on a quiet, low-lit Italian place I'd never been to. The night of the date, I was so nervous, but the butterflies felt good. Tom looked even better in person, a little taller than I expected, and dressed in a way that was almost old-fashioned but stylish. He had this deep, quiet confidence about him. But there was one thing I noticed right away. His phone. It was old, like something from the early 2000s. I thought it was quirky. Maybe he was just old school. As the night went on, everything felt off. Every time I asked him about his job, his family, or his friends, he dodged the question with a joke or steer the conversation back to me. When I asked where he was from, he looked blank for a moment before he answered, as if he were trying to remember a story he'd rehearsed. He laughed easily, but his gaze held mine a little too long. It felt like he was studying me rather than connecting to me. Halfway through our meal, I excused myself to go to the restroom. When I returned, the table was empty. Tom wasn't there. His chair was pushed in, and his wine glass sat untouched, as if he'd vanished. I looked around, hoping maybe he'd just gone to the restroom too, but I started to feel that creeping sensation at the back of my neck. I waved the waiter over, asking if he'd seen where Tom went. The waiter looked at me puzzled. "You were sitting alone, miss. I didn't see anyone with you." I laughed nervously, assuming he must have just missed him coming in. I explained what he looked like and that we had been there for at least an hour. But the waiter just looked at me with this pity, as if he was worried about me. "Ma'am, I saw you walk in alone and sit down. You ordered your wine and meal. No one has been with you." Feeling dizzy, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Tom had snuck out for some strange reason. Maybe this was his idea of a bad joke. Frustrated, I took out my phone to message him, only to find his chat history was gone. Our entire conversation was wiped as if it had never existed. I searched his name, scrolled through every match I'd ever had, but there was no trace of him. As I walked out of the restaurant, I looked back one last time. For just a split second, I thought I saw his reflection in the window, watching me with that same quiet, unsettling smile. Then he was gone. To this day, I still don't know if Tom was real or if he was just a trick of my mind. But sometimes when I scroll through my photos, I swear I catch glimpses of him, his face in the background, his eyes following me, like he's always been there this entire time. After a string of unimpressive dates, I decided to delete Tinder for good. But on my last night on the app, I came across a boy named Ethan. He was handsome in a rugged way, dark hair, a square jaw, and a smile that felt warm and inviting. We exchanged a few messages, and there was something about his charm that made me want to meet him. So, in a last-minute decision, I agreed to grab a drink with him at a bar near my apartment. When I arrived, the bar was busy, but I quickly spotted him sitting by the window nursing a drink. He looked even better in person, and as I walked over, his eyes lit up. We started talking, and it was easy. He was funny, attentive, and asked all the right questions. But as the night went on, I noticed small, strange things. Ethan seemed to know too much about me, like mentioning details I hadn't even shared over the Tinder app. At first, I thought I might have mentioned them in passing, but when he casually asked me about my new favorite local cafe, I was caught off guard. I had never told him that. I brushed it off, trying to stay calm, and ordered another drink. When I glanced at my phone, though, I saw a notification from my friend, Sarah. It was a quick message. "Hey, are you okay? Where are you?" Confused, I texted her back, telling her I was fine and on a date, asking why she was so worried. A response almost came immediately. "I just saw you left me a voicemail. You sounded terrified." A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't called her. Trying to play it cool, I excused myself to the restroom, locking the door behind me as I dialed her number. She picked up right away, her voice tense. "You left me a voicemail saying something like, 'Please help me, he's not who he says he is.'" My heart started racing. I took a deep breath, told her where I was and that I'd be fine. I didn't want to overreact, but when I got back to the table, Ethan's entire demeanor had changed. His friendly expression was gone, replaced by a cold, intense stare. "Did you have a nice chat?" he asked, his voice low. I forced a laugh, brushing it off, and said it was just a friend of mine checking in on me. But he didn't seem convinced. I told him I wasn't feeling well and I was ready to call it a night. As I gathered my things, he leaned in close, almost whispering, "You can't just leave." His hand clamped down on my wrist, not painfully, but with a grip that made my heart pound. My mind raced, and in a moment of sheer desperation, I pulled my wrist free and walked as calmly as I could toward the door, not looking back. Once I was outside, I broke into a sprint, dialing 911. When the police arrived, I explained everything, from the creepy details he somehow knew about me to the voicemail my friend had received. They took my statement and promised to look into it. I went home, shaken but grateful to be safe. A few days later, the officer handling my case called. He sounded hesitant, almost apologetic, when he said, "Ma'am, we ran a check on Ethan based on your description, but there's no record of him on Tinder or any other dating app." Then he paused, adding one final unsettling detail. "However, we found an old missing persons report matching his description. The man you described disappeared almost 3 years ago." I don't know who or what I met on that date, but every now and then, I'll see a new Tinder notification pop up on the phone. I never dare to open them, fearing it might be Ethan. It started as a typical night of swiping on Tinder. I was about to close the app and call the night when I matched with a man named Derek. He was good looking, had a sharp smile, and his profile was straightforward. Looking for someone who likes a little adventure. It felt intriguing, so I messaged him. After some back and forth, he suggested a date, but not your typical drinks or dinner. Instead, he invited me over to his place to play a game. "You up for something exciting?" he typed. "You'll see. Meet me at Fairway Park at 10 p.m. I was nervous and a little skeptical, but I was also excited, so I agreed. When I arrived, the park was dark, with only a few dim streetlights casting long shadows. I felt a little silly for agreeing to meet him in such a weird, creepy setting. But soon I spotted him. Derek was leaning against a bench, a mischievous grin on his face. He held up a small flashlight and handed me one as well. "We're going to play a game called Hide and Seek in the Dark," he explained. The rules were simple. We each hide, and the other person has to find them using only the flashlight. But there's a twist. You can't speak, and if you're found, you have to close your eyes for 10 seconds before you can look around. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a little weird, but he assured me it would be fun. So I agreed, telling myself it was just a game. We started with him hiding first. I counted to 30, calling on all my courage to walk through the darkened park, using the flashlight's narrow beam to scan the bushes and benches. My heart was racing with a strange mixture of excitement and fear. I found him after a few minutes, crouched behind a tree, his eyes wide, staring up at me with an unsettling intensity. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just watched me as I counted to 10 with my eyes closed, and by the time I opened them, he was already gone. Now it was my turn. I found a hiding spot behind a large oak tree near the edge of the park, crouching down, trying to control my breathing. I heard the crunch of his footsteps getting closer, but something about the way he moved felt wrong. His footsteps were deliberate, almost like he was dragging his feet. I held my breath as the light from his flashlight brushed past me, and then suddenly it stopped. "Found you," he whispered, his voice just inches from my ear. I jumped, heart pounding, but before I could react, he reminded me of the rule. Close your eyes. I reluctantly closed them, counting slowly to 10. But as I reached the end and opened my eyes, Derek was gone, and in his place, I noticed something strange on the ground where he had been standing. A single, crumpled Polaroid camera. I picked it up, and my blood went cold. It was a photo of me. The photo was worn and faded like it had been taken a long time ago. My stomach twisted with fear. Before I could make sense of it, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Derek. "You're good at hiding. Let's play again sometime." I froze, my flashlight slipping from my hand. I never matched with Derek again, but every now and then, I'll get a notification from an unknown phone number. "It's your turn to hide." I deleted each one immediately, but deep down, I know he's still out there, still playing, waiting for me to take my turn.